Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, California. Welcome to the Citizens Redistricting Commission meeting on this Tuesday, December 22nd. I'd like to do our roll call. Wanda?
Commissioner Sadwani? Here. Commissioner Sinai? Here. Commissioner Taylor?
Present.
Commissioner Toledo? Commissioner Turner? Here. Commissioner Vasquez? Commissioner Yee?
Here.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Here.
Commissioner Akutagawa?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Here.
Commissioner Furnishari?
Here.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Here.
And Commissioner Lamont?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a quorum?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. So we're going to move into our opening public comment. I'd like to remind you that this public comment is open for any topic that you'd like to talk about. We'd like to start our meeting with hearing from the public. We are going to have a pretty substantive conversation regarding line drawing. So I ask if you would reserve those comments, if you will, to after agenda item 4. We will be talking about that and opening the floor again for public comment at that time. So we'll have our opening public comment, then we'll move into general announcements and commission updates. Then we'll have our executive director's report, which we will be hearing from our executive director, our deputy executive director, and we will be having discussion on the line drawers. And then we will move into our interagency agreements. Item number 5 is actually going to be tabled for a future meeting. And then we'll move into our data management. Item number 6, we have a chair rotation schedule. Item number 7, I'm going to move up the discussion about future meeting items and agendas to just above closed session. We will be going into a closed session today to handle some personnel matters. We will come back after that closed session, report out. We will then have closing public comment, and that'll be the conclusion of our business day today. So at this time, I'd like to go to Peter, if you could open the line for public comments.
It'll be Katie will be taking care of that for you today, Jim.
Okay, Katie.
Good morning. In order to maximize transparency and public participation in our process, the Commission will be taking public comment by phone. To call in, dial the telephone number provided on the live stream feed. It is 877-853-5247. When prompted to enter the meeting ID number, it is provided on the live stream feed 910-9237-7762 for this week's meeting. When prompted to enter a participant ID, simply press the pound key. Once you have dialed in, you will be placed in a queue from which a moderator will begin unmuting callers to submit their comment. You will also hear an automatic message to press star 9. Please do this to raise your hand indicating you wish to comment. When it is your turn to speak, the moderator will unmute you and you will hear an automatic message that says the host would like you to talk and to press star 6 to speak. Please make sure to mute your computer or live stream audio to prevent any feedback or distortion during your call. Once you are waiting in the queue, be alert for when it is your turn to speak. And again, please turn down the live stream volume. The Commission is taking general public comment at this time. And we do have one person in the queue at this time.
Okay, please invite them in, Katie.
If you'll please state and spell your name for the court reporter. You are live. If you could state and spell your name for the court reporter. There we go. If we could state and spell your name for the court reporter.
Yes, good morning. This is Lori, Lori, Schellenberger, Schellenberger, and I'm the redistricting consultant for Common Cause. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you're not hearing my voice in your sleep at this point. I know I call in a lot. I had two really quick comments. The first is, I won't go into the substance regarding the line drawer RFP, but I did want to flag that I sent an email on behalf of a few organizations who had reviewed it over the weekend and discussed it yesterday with some minor feedback, and I just wanted to flag that and make sure it got to the commissioners. I emailed that last night, and I will be on listening during your discussion, and as will a few of the other folks who participate in that discussion. And so, if you have questions during your discussion, and you can flag for us if you need us to call in. Otherwise, I won't call in regarding the substance. I think they're self-explanatory. And the second issue I just wanted to flag was a logistical one, and one was to thank staff for getting emails out and to the email list about upcoming meetings and the posting of the draft RFP and the RFIs for council. I also wondered if it might be possible, because I am starting to get inquiries from folks about upcoming meetings, and to the extent you can post the dates of upcoming meetings on the website before everyone breaks for the holidays. I think it would be helpful for folks who are trying to plan for next year. And those are my comments, and just want to wish you all happy holidays, and thank you again for your incredible service to the people of California.
Thank you, Ms. Schellenberger. And I want to confirm, yes, we did receive the email, and thank you for those. Thanks to staff. And thank you for your participation. We appreciate it. Katie, any additional callers in the queue?
No, Chair, that was it.
Okay, we'll wait a minute and give people an opportunity and go from there. Katie, are there any callers in the queue?
No.
Okay, with that, we're going to move forward. I'd like to bring our attention to agenda item number 3, general announcements from commissioners or updates, and from staff, any items of interest to the commission. Does anyone have any announcements or updates they'd like to present? Commissioner Sinai?
I would like to congratulate Commissioner Fernandez on officially being retired.
Congratulations, Commissioner Fernandez. You look excited. I hear it's not all it's cracked up to be. We'll wait for details. Any other announcements? Okay, seeing no hands for further announcements or updates, at this time I'd like to move to the Executive Director's Report, agenda item number 4. Director Claypool.
Good morning, Commissioners, and happy holidays. This will be a brief report by me, but just on a staffing, we continue to receive the interest in the positions that we posted, and we will be reviewing the 2 positions for budget and for an accounting position next week. And we will be running all of this up through our Finance and Administration Subcommittee. And also, I will have a budget report for you in our next meeting that will encompass all of the expenditures through December. Right now, I'd like to pass this over to Alvaro for his report on outreach.
Thank you, Director. Good morning, Commissioners. This is week 2 for me, and it feels like I've been here much longer than that, unfortunately. I've been working my way in getting information to develop the strategic plan that I'll be running through the different committees. Hopefully, I have something by the next commission meeting for you to take a look at. Also, in regards to the language services, there was a question, how long will it take? It takes, with the small business contract for the language services, it will take anywhere between 3 to 4 weeks to get that into place. One of the things that has come up in regards to that is what languages we will be looking at. So we'll have to have a further discussion on that. Marcy Kaplan shared that the census group had the California top 12 languages that they focused on. So we'll have that conversation at a later time, but I just wanted to put it out there. In regards to the grants recommendations, I'm working on that as well to put together the information I've received from the subcommittee and as to the pros and cons of either farming it out or doing it in-house, and recommendations on what you should consider at least. That's the extent of my report. Director?
So the only other item that needs to be discussed now is the line drawer. Coming up under my report is the line drawer RFP. We sent it out to the for public.
Excuse me. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Director Claypool. I just want to give commissioners an opportunity to ask any questions before we dive into this piece. If they have any questions about what was shared so far by either yourself or Deputy Executive Director Hernandez. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Okay, with that, please continue, Director Claypool.
So coming up under my report is the line drawer RFP. We sent it out, as you know, on Friday. We've received public comment that should have been distributed to all of you. And I'd just like to open it up to the commission for questions or edits or reviews of that document.
Have all the commissioners had an opportunity to review the email that Ms. Schellenberger referenced? We did receive that. I see nods. Okay, wonderful.
Now, what we could do, Chair, is we could go through that document very quickly, just bullet by bullet, if that is something you'd like to do, or?
I'd like the subcommittee to guide the direction of this discussion. This has been something they've shepherded from the beginning, so I'll defer to them in terms of how they'd like to handle the feedback and this discussion.
Thank you, Chair Lamons. Commissioner Anderson, feel free to jump in at any point. You know, we've definitely taken our time putting this together. It's been in progress for many weeks now, and we're very excited to have a draft to share with you all, and we welcome all of your feedback. I did receive the email from Ms. Schellenberger last night. I have kind of skimmed it, but I'll certainly spend more time later today going through it in detail. It looks like a number of great suggestions that have been raised and areas where things need to be clarified. So I certainly appreciate receiving all of that feedback and very much open to additional feedback. Is it helpful for the commission for us to go through the RFP? My sense is it's been posted, but you know, I don't know if Jane, if you have anything you want to add to kind of this new draft.
The only thing I thought if we'd like in Ms. Schellenberger's comments, there are a few items which we may want to talk about as the commission. And there are a couple of things we could just sort of almost kind of walk through that and then hit a few ideas that just to confirm this is what, that this is indeed the commission's ideas. But other than that, unless, you know, if a commissioner has some particular items that they'd like to talk about right away, I suggest we deal with those immediately. We don't have to walk through the entire document if people don't have many comments. But we could indeed address Ms. Schellenberger's, which, as I said, a couple of them are items that we'd probably want to bring to your attention anyway. So with that, are there any questions from the commissioners specifically that we could address right away?
Commissioner Kennedy, you're on mute.
I made the point last time and it hasn't been reflected, and I just want to go on record again as saying that in my mind, the footnote at the bottom of page 1 and the text that it relates to need to be flipped. I mean, the Supreme Court of the state of California in its ruling said that we have until the 15th of December. Now, if you want to put a footnote saying that the original constitutional deadline was the 15th of August, that's fine. But, you know, the ruling of the Supreme Court says the commission is directed to approve and certify the final statewide maps to the Secretary of State by no later than December 15, 2021. That's pretty clear, you know. So I just really believe that we need to make that clear in the RFP. Thanks.
That item did come up in Ms. Schollenberger's comment in terms of making sure that it is indeed obvious to the line drawer that there is indeed a possibility that you might, you know, this might get delayed all the way through that date. So a reworking of how exactly that's written to make sure that encompasses that very real possibility, given the timeline of when the data gets when the census data gets there. That is certainly something we could just slightly rewrite, and I think that was a good point. Ms. Schollenberger brings it up when we have anticipated time for meetings to make sure that that gets modified. That it's obvious that it could go that late. So thank you, Commissioner Kennedy. I think that is something that we should slightly modify.
So I have a question for Commissioner Kennedy. Commissioner Kennedy, do you feel like what Commissioner Anderson has put forward is representative of your perspective on this?
You know, my objection is really to that last sentence of item 1A3, where it says completed district maps and the accompanying reports must be submitted to the California Secretary of State's office no later than August 15. You know, I think that needs to read no later than December 15, 2021. And then if you want to footnote and say this was based on California Supreme Court ruling extending the deadline from the original constitutional deadline of August 15, and that, you know, depending on when the commission receives the data, the commission is encouraged to expedite the process. But I think we need to reflect the Supreme Court ruling.
Okay, see, I think Commissioner Kennedy is saying something a little bit different. I just want to remind the commissioners that we've had a pretty robust discussion about the deadline, and we as a commission have already agreed that August will be our deadline. So I do think that there should be some kind of footnote that says that is the decision of the commission, and if we want to reference the meeting in which we made that decision, we should do that. And we can also add the statement that the Supreme Court issued. So it sounds like that could clear this up, where we have agreed as a commission on a deadline date, which should be reflected. The point about the potential extension will also be necessary because it may get extended, which we've all also agreed in choosing the August date that we were willing to extend based upon when we get the data, and then what the Supreme Court ruled. So those three key pieces of information will be included in the footnote, and then hopefully that addresses all the concerns and respects the decision that the commission made previously in choosing the deadline date. Commissioner Kennedy.
Well, again, I go back to the must be submitted no later than August 15th. That is the first thing that needs to be changed, and then the footnote can be changed to reflect everything else that you've mentioned. But you know, I think the number one thing is to change the body text.
And you're saying that should be changed to December, to the December date. Is that what you're saying, Commissioner Kennedy?
Not necessarily.
Or are you concerned about the word, excuse me, must, or are you concerned about the date?
Well, it's the must. If we're gonna say must, the must is December 15th. You know, we can reference our decision. We can reference our decision to stick with the original timeline and the fact that it may be extended at the commission's discretion. But the Supreme Court ruling is clear in my mind.
Okay.
Commissioner Sadwani, I know you had your hand up.
Yeah, I would just say I thank you, Commissioner Kennedy. I don't have a problem removing the must. I understand that this is most certainly a point of contention, you know, for some, as certainly as well as the public. My understanding from our previous conversations was that we were, as a commission, utilizing August 15th as our working deadline. And when we know if the census data, I mean, it's highly likely that the census data will be late, but we don't know that for sure yet. So as of right now, we have prepared this based on that August 15th. I certainly understand the, you know, removing the word must. But if you look down later on page 15 of the document, you'll also see that we have anticipated timeframes, including public hearings and mid-July to early August being the preparation of final maps for August 15th as our deadline. There we added an asterisk, just reminding them that this is, again, this is an anticipated time frame and that it may change. So I don't have a problem removing must, but my understanding is that we already had this conversation as a commission that August 15th was our working deadline. And that's what we were using.
Commissioner Kennedy.
So let's say, you know, the commission intends to submit maps by August 15th, but I don't think we can say must because we are not required to submit them by August 15th.
Yeah.
And I'm fine removing must.
Commissioner Turner? Okay. Commissioner Anderson?
I believe we have enough information to rearrange a little bit, like, you know, the original deadline, the commissioner's intent, but reference the Supreme Court deadlines. We just need to rearrange that, those two items, and make sure it's consistent all the way through, which evidently one portion in the far end of the report, it's a little vague. So we need to, that's what Ms. Schellenberger was referring to. So I think I have enough information there to make the slight modifications.
Okay, do commissioners feel like we need to have our council look at our closing language, whatever language we come up with there, or not necessary? Commissioner Anderson.
That's already, anything that we modify or change, it does go through our legal counsel.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Okay, so it sounds like this was one of the key points. Going back to the plan, it sounds like Commissioner Anderson recommended first asking commissioners if they had any specific things that they wanted to address. We began with the one that Commissioner Kennedy raised. I'm going to ask for additional excuse me, comments or concerns that commissioners have, at which point we'll turn it back over to Director Claypool to hit the highlights of the public comment that we received in writing, and Commissioner Anderson as well, who has identified there are key things that she feels the commission should weigh in on. So with that plan, Commissioner Kennedy.
I'm happy to defer if someone else has another issue, but
it's all yours, Commissioner Kennedy.
Okay. Page 3, under geographic database for redistricting, that first paragraph, redistricting database, I don't understand the purpose of the first sentence. I mean, it seems to me that the purpose of that paragraph is to say the 2020 census data used shall be that of the California statewide database located at the University of California, Berkeley School of Law. So I would propose to eliminate the first sentence under redistricting database.
Does any members of the subcommittee or staff have an explanation to Commissioner Kennedy on his point?
We did discuss this, and it was not quite clear. I think we were looking for a little bit more information about the certified population data. I think that might be a particular title, and we did not have an answer to that yet. I believe that's either if council could look into that one, and or we just do a quick check with Ms. McDonald.
Director Claypool?
And I would just ask our council, didn't we use certified 2020 U.S. Census data because that is in fact what will come from the U.S. Census Bureau is a certified copy?
Yes, that's correct. And the only caveat of why we made it that the commission can adjust it is in case the data that the certified excludes undocumented immigrants, in which case we believe that under California law, those have to be added back in. So it would not be actually using the certified. It would be certified as modified.
Commissioner Kennedy, does that handle your clarification?
I guess I'm wondering if, what we're going to end up with in any and every case isn't in fact the data from the statewide database. And if that's the case, I'm not understanding why we need that previous sentence. It seems to raise the possibility that we might not use the data from the statewide database. That first sentence seems to raise that possibility.
Director Claypool?
So it's my understanding that there may be a clash, and again, I'm going to defer to our attorneys, but there may be a clash between the census data as it's presented to the state of California and the requirements of the state of California with regards to the information that they can use. And I just asked Kari, is that
and also
is that how you understand it, that there could be a difference between the two?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Anderson?
Oh, I'm still on. Sorry, not on mute. Also, the idea here is the rest of the sentence is required because there's the population data, and we also need particular subgroups of it. So now all of this data is at the statewide database. That's where it's supposed to get it. But what particular things we're looking for are, the whole piece of the data, and then the population subgroups. And because there's a little bit of things you don't necessarily have to use. Basically, we want to make sure that they're using the part that's at the statewide database that we want. So that was where we were talking about the redistricting database. And we do say it again, you're right, in terms of the data requirements, but.
Okay, so staff, you'll work with council to consider Commissioner Kennedy's point and the feedback that's been given, an explanation of that point to make sure that it is clear for the intent of the commission.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Fernandez.
I just had a quick question for Commissioner Sadwani. You mentioned that you reviewed the public comments from Ms. Schellenberger. Did you say you were making changes based on that? Because I had a couple questions that also were in that public comment, so I didn't know if I needed to go through that or if they're already being taken into consideration.
I've only had a chance to review that in brief, so we will take. I will take a closer look at all of those. You are welcome to raise any or highlight any key points, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, actually, Commissioner Fernandez. That is some of the items that I thought we should talk about because some of the items she mentions here are commission items that we could indeed, that's up to the commission to decide. So if you want to bring any of those up now, please do.
Okay. I just had a couple of them. She talked about, or that I noticed on page 2 when you talk about the page length, it was 2 to 5 pages, and I also felt that might be a little restrictive. You might want to increase that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was, I'm looking really quick. On page 6, J, where you talk about any request for a written or verbal report must be responded to within 24 hours. I thought that might be restrictive. I would want at least a reply and an estimate as to when they can get that report, because it really does depend on what kind of report we're requesting. I don't know if 24 hours would be possible for some reports that we may need. And at this point, of course, I don't know which reports we're going to need, but just in case, especially if you need a whole new redo of the explanations of the draft maps. And just a minor thing, just throughout the whole document, we reference COI sometimes as community of interest, sometimes communities of interest, sometimes it's COI, sometimes it's COIS, sometimes it's COI''S. So if we could just do it, just be consistent, that'd be great. But thank you so much. I mean, just very good document. I know you put a lot of time into it, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. Director Claypool?
Commissioner Fernandez, could you tell me again the first point you made? I didn't get it. I came in on 6J in 24 hours.
Oh, it had to do with the page length?
Okay.
Is that the one?
Okay.
On page 2, it's the second or third paragraph, it's just saying the page length of the proposal.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually the plan, and that's a couple places in there. So we will pick that up. Oh, however, if we do want to discuss that, because we said 2 to 5, the commissioners want, 4 to 6, or do they care?
Does any commissioners have a recommendation? Commissioner Kennedy, then Fernandez.
If you're going to give a maximum, just give a single page, number of pages rather than range. And certainly maximum of 2 to 5, your maximum is 5. So whatever it is, whether it's 5 or 10, go with whatever that absolute maximum is.
Commissioner Fernandez, then Commissioner Turner. Oh, Commissioner Fernandez passes. Commissioner Turner, then Director Claypool.
I think we heard that we're not expecting to receive a lot of submissions online draw, so I'm wondering if there is a need to restrict it and put a number there.
Commissioner Anderson, then Director Claypool.
The reason why that it's to make sure they realize that's not the proposal length. That's only the approach plan or the plan length. It's a small portion of the proposal. It's an important part, and it's what basically the presentation is based on, but it is not the proposal length. So that was the idea why we put page numbers in there, so they'd instantly go, oh, I see. It's that is a portion of, that's not the entire proposal.
Director Claypool.
So Ms. Schellenberger's proposal was to increase that to 10 pages, and she makes a good point. I don't think that we're going to have so many line drawers that to extend it to 10 pages is going to be onerous in regards to going through that many proposals. I would just think the commission should consider that as an absolute maximum and just make it 10 pages.
Any objections, commissioners? Okay, point resolved. Does other commissioners have items they want to lift up? Okay, Director Claypool, from your assessment of the document, you wanted to point to a few things. Would you like to do that at this time?
Yes. So from the comments from Ms. Schellenberger, I'd like to go to Table 1 and key action items. I'm not entirely certain where that is in the document. It must be.
It is.
There it is, key action items. So we're looking at page 10. And there has been the suggestion that we allow at least 2 to 4 weeks between the posting of the RFP and the deadline for submission. So I think we need to consider the length of time that we want to have this out and allow proposers to come back. And I'll yield.
Commissioner Anderson, did you have a comment?
I did. I tried to move it up because as soon as this goes, my idea was to try to move this up as quickly as possible. And as soon as it goes to Office of Legal Services, I thought we could try to notify at that point all the line drawers to say, hey, here's our draft. This is what's out there. This is what we're trying to do. So we could kind of give them the time frame, and once it comes out of legal, then they have like a 2 week, a shortened period. So rather than making it wait and wait and wait, because they already know here's the bulk of it. It'll get cleaned up somewhat, but to give them that time frame, again, just to move the whole thing forward, which is why I tried to move it forward, that deadline, rather than going 4 weeks afterwards.
Is there a definitive recommendation on the length of time change that's being offered? Director Claypool?
So, and as I discussed with the subcommittee, typically this would go out for 30 days, which is a long time. But as Commissioner Anderson has explained, that's, we're trying to bring this person aboard. I would at least want to split that difference. I would hope that we would go out for at least 21 days. With this, it is true that, what Commissioner Anderson said, that we can release our draft that's being inspected by the Office of Legal Services, and I don't think that there's going to be a great deal of change between what we see here. So they would be seeing part and parcel the primary document. But it takes a while for people to pull together this document and to consider all the different pieces that go into it. And I think 21 days is where the kind of the minimum place that I would expect them to be comfortable.
I see a lot of body language affirmation from the commissioners. Is anyone not comfortable with 21 days? Okay. Next point. Director Claypool.
I'm going through the notes I made. Okay. I think that from here, I would just say that as we need to move back with the subcommittee and Raul and myself and just consider the assignments of the points for the proposal plans and so forth. On the merit of what was given to us. I don't see anything else here that I would bring up personally for consideration by the Commission.
Okay, Commissioners, any additional feedback on this item? Commissioner Fernandez?
I'm sorry, I just missed it before when I talked on page 6 when you talked about professional and collaboration. I didn't know if you wanted to refer to them adhering to the Commission's code of conduct. It's what you put in there is fine, but you may also want to refer to that.
Okay, looks like that'll be added. Commissioner Kennedy.
I just wanted to endorse Ms. Schellenberger's point regarding the scoring table and reducing the number of points assigned to presentation and bumping up the points for substance. Thank you.
Subcommittee, could you please speak to that?
Yeah, Sarah, did you want to run with that? I'm trying to grab where it is.
Yeah.
Okay, while you're doing that, are you ready, Commissioner Satwani?
I do have the number.
What page, Commissioner Kennedy, were you looking at? The score?
Page 6.
23.
I have it's 29 of the line drawing. I don't know how you got 26.
And I have 23. Anyway, under evaluation criteria.
Commissioner Fornashari.
I want to say I support it too. So, and it's on 23. The chart's on 23 on my document too.
How is that? When I got 29.
You guys making me nervous. Are you all looking at the same document?
That's exactly what I'm concerned about.
Yes, are different from what's posted on each page from the page of the document.
Yeah, it says page 23 on the document, not on the PDF itself.
Oh, thank you. Oh, so I'm sorry. So we walk through these the points because we did go back and forth on if everyone's looking at that, you know, there's you can see how it is in the document right now. It's redistricting references, so that's all their references is 20. Their experience is 15. The proposers, the plan and methodology is 15. Presentation is 20. I think I already told you the cost has to stay at 30, can't go below that. And Ms. Schollenberger is suggesting move the proposer's plan up to 25 and make the presentation 10. So what do people think?
Commissioner Kennedy?
I would propose to bump those two that are 15, each of them up to 20, and take those 10 points that you used and reduce presentation to 10.
Commissioner Kutagawa?
I just want to affirm that. I agree. I think she does bring up a good point in terms of we don't want a lot of flash and not substance. And so I think the renumbering of the priorities or the point assignments, I think will ensure that we get a good quality plan, not necessarily one that looks pretty.
Any additional commissioner feedback on this point? Commissioner Sadwani?
Thank you. I'm perfectly fine making these adjustments. I'll say, I think, Commissioner Anderson, correct me if I'm wrong, when we were talking about presentation, we also thought that allows us a little flexibility to make sure that we identify someone that we all feel like we can work with, right, through their presentation style. I don't have any problem with the adjustments that have been recommended either by Ms. Schellenberger or Commissioner Kennedy. Either one would be perfectly fine with me. But I do just want to acknowledge and kind of point to that at the end of the day, I think we want to make sure that we can identify someone that we all feel we can work with. This is someone who's going to be working very closely with us. So I do want to make sure that we can prioritize that. But I think that still can be the case.
Commissioner Sinai, followed by Commissioner Kutagawa.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my only concern is then the high weight on cost, because we have talked that cost is part of the equation, but all these other pieces are important. And I think maybe is there another word we can use for presentation and engagement, or presentation and not charisma, but the whole relationship piece. It may be presentation and engagement, how do they engage us in it? But I'm just worried that cost is a lot of points based on everything else.
Commissioner Commissioner Kutagawa.
Thank you. First off, I'm going to say that I think if Commissioner Sadwani, if your intent was more about how we're going to work with the person, and if also presentation was a consideration, I would suggest that we make it split and be explicit about what it is that you want. And if relationship or ability to work well with the commission is a consideration, I think that should be explicitly said, and also then given a separate set of points versus just you make a really nice presentation, like it's pretty or something like that. And maybe I'm just overly simplifying what you intended on that. The other thing is, I think what Commissioner Sinai said on the cost, perhaps for what you were thinking about, Commissioner Sadwani, perhaps, the ability to work well with the commission could be, a set of points that you take from the cost. I would recommend that we don't go below the 20 points that we put to the redistricting references and the bump that we made to the plan and the qualifications. I think, at least the cost from a fiscal responsibility, we have to put that on par with some of these other things. But perhaps we could take 10 points from it and put it towards, I think part of what Commissioner Sadwani was looking for in terms of the person's ability to work well with the team.
According to Commissioner Anderson, the cost is fixed. It cannot go below 30, so we cannot subtract any points from cost. Is that correct, Commissioner Anderson and Sadwani? Thank you. Director Claypool?
So I want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing across the boards. So this presentation we're talking about is the physical presentation that will be scored when the person does the interview, correct? So these are interviews. This is an interview scoring for the presentation that we receive, not necessarily the presentation of the documents themselves, but the presentation when the person's in the interview. So I just want to make sure we're all talking about that.
Does that clarification help anyone's position on that, Commissioner Fernandez?
I like the 20% for the presentation because I do want them to put some effort in there, and I do believe that it is important for us to feel comfortable, and it goes a long way. In terms of the references, I know we're allowing them to pick the references, so I always tend to kind of not put as much weight on that, because for the most part, if I'm going to put a reference, I'm going to put a reference that's going to give me a good reference. So I would suggest maybe reducing that. I know that goes contrary to Commissioner Kutagawa, but I guess I've just been on the hiring, interviewing side so often that the references, they don't come into play as strongly as you would hope they would, only because they are being selective in terms of who they're bringing forward.
Commissioner Sinai, did you have a question? Commissioner Kutagawa.
I would actually agree with Commissioner Fernandez on the reference part, and that could be a place where we could draw some additional points for the others. I will caution, however, in terms of, again, going back to people who make a good presentation, whether it's their presentation of their plan, I think we still need to be focused on, is the plan good? And then do they make a good presentation about it? I think that given what we're trying to do, my concern would be to ensure that there's a strong plan in place, not a strong communicator who can, make something sound good, but not actually deliver on what it is that we want. So I think that's kind of where I'm coming from on it. But I would be comfortable if you wanted to keep it the same. But I think we should try to make sure that the qualifications and the quality of the plan is bumped up to at least be equal weight.
Commissioner Kennedy, then Commissioner Fernandez.
So then I would propose that we modify it to be 15, 20, 20, 15. So references 15, qualifications and experience 20, quality of plan and methodology 20, presentation 15, and leaving cost at 30.
Commissioner Fernandez, then Commissioner Fornashari.
I'm just a little concerned because Commissioner Kennedy is reading my thoughts. So I'm just going to put that out. This is the second time I'm going to just go ahead and agree with him, and that's great.
Commissioner Fornashari.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, is references, is that like this team is great references type of references, or is it reference projects that they've done in the past? So in this case, a reference project would be an example of something they've done in the past that is equivalent or significant, and how it came out and whether there was a lawsuit and all that stuff, right? Is that correct?
Commissioner Anderson.
If we go back to page, it's 14 on my document, so I guess the document itself would be called 11, qualifications and experience. It is, as Commissioner Fornashari just mentioned, it's, you have to show, you have to have done this kind of redistricting. You have to have, we need a list of all the projects in the last 20 years that you've done this on. And we need to have certain things identified in those projects. Expert testimony in the last 20 years. what those involved. Then the actual reference projects are 3 different projects with their information. And then that's essentially to show us how complex the jobs are, as well as, the complexity, in which case we sort of defined it as dealing with not just size. Size is a very small component, actually. It's racial diversity. How much really hard, VRA items have you had to deal with? That sort of thing. And that's all in here. So that is kind of a larger thing. The project personnel, I'm not quite sure if that's under that. So the redistricting references is a portion of the qualifications and experience, right? The references itself, those we're talking about, are the 3 specific big projects and how complex they are. So the complexity issue is very important. And then the other, though, the reference, so it is. That is very important. And then the qualifications, though, is very important because it says all the rest of everything. It includes all their resumes. And the resumes have to say for each person involved, what have you done in the VRA? What have you done with the geography? Essentially, what redistricting work have you actually done?
Thank you for that, Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Fornashari, does that change the proposal on the table from your point of view? Are you recommending an alternative point distribution?
I'm not. I just want to make sure we were all clear on what that meant. So,
absolutely.
So those folks who are proposing point distributions might consider that, but I don't have a specific proposal.
Okay. Anyone who has made a point distribution proposal, does this clarification alter what we have on the table? Okay. Anyone against the proposed point proposal? Should we have someone? Commissioner Anderson.
Could you just clarify exactly what it is?
Commissioner Kennedy.
So the proposal is redistricting references 15 points, and particularly if we're considering 3 references, it's harder to divide 20 by 3 than it is 15 by 3. Qualifications and experience of management and lead staff, 20 points. Quality of proposers, plan and methodology, 20 points. Presentation, 15 points. Cost, 30 points. Total, 100 points.
Again, I see a lot of body language affirmation. I don't know if that's intentional or involuntary, but thank you. Any opposition? Okay. I think that was the final point, but we'll ask again, are there additional points that any commissioners or staff want to raise with regard to feedback or anything that you've observed in your own reading and review of the document? If not, we will move to public comment at this. Commissioner Kutagawa.
I'm sorry, I'm not really fully understanding her point about regarding confidentiality, and I don't know if council can clarify that if there's something about that I'm just not understanding.
Could you say it out loud, please?
It's the bullet. Sure, it's the bullet point that says regarding confidentiality. I guess it's 3D, and it says it urges us to err on the side of transparency, and it seems like documents that are incorrectly labeled as confidential, and that the proposer will have the option to withdraw such documents and have them removed from consideration if proposer disagrees. I'm not quite sure what that they mean by that, and that may be some kind of legal thing. I don't know.
Commissioner Fornashari.
So if you read through the statement of work, there's a section in there that talks about confidentiality, and the proposer can claim documents are confidential and those won't be released. The rest of the proposal will be released. I think what she's saying here is if the commission believes that those documents should not be confidential, they can disagree with the proposer, and then the proposer would have the option to either withdraw those documents or allow them to be released publicly.
Thank you.
So are we going to incorporate that and make that change? Is that what's being recommended? Are you recommending that, Commissioner Kutagawa?
I was just asking for clarification. I'm not necessarily making a recommendation.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was going to say, I do like that as a recommendation, and thanks to Commissioner Fornashari, I never would have had that understanding without the explanation. So I think it's a good one with his explanation that he added in.
Any dissenters on that? Okay. Any additional points? Commissioner Kennedy.
On the issue of multiple simultaneous hearings, I'm wondering if that's really what we mean, where people will be talking at 2 or 3 or 4 locations at the same time, or are we talking about a meeting where we will be listening to all of the input coming from 2 or 3 or 4 locations? And so, I mean, I don't know that the actual physical requirements of the contractor would be different, but I'm just trying to understand if we're going to have to choose between which of these simultaneous meetings we participate in, or whether we will be able to hear the input coming from all of them, and it's sequenced so that we can do that. So if the subcommittee could help me on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Subcommittee or staff, do you have a clarification on this point?
This is the point 2 on page 12. Is that correct, Commissioner Kennedy?
It's mentioned several places in the document.
Okay, yeah. This was and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong here. This was some ideas that we had about how we might do some outreach. This is not locking us into anything, but simply laying out some alternatives for how we might make this approach during COVID, right? If we're not physically present, could we be holding multiple meetings at the same time? If so, how would a line drawer approach that? So this is meant to be a part of their plan to show us the kind of flexibility that they may or may not have. I know Dan has talked previously about, could we set up, in multiple locations and in one evening and do 2 hours here and 2 hours there, or something like that. So my sense of this is show us what you got. These are these are times that are very difficult. They're challenging for all of us to figure out, and this provides some opportunity for the line drawer to give us some suggestions about how we might be able to handle that. But Commissioner Anderson or Dan, if either of you want to jump in to give further clarification, my understanding, Commissioner Kennedy, is that's not holding us to it, but simply laying out how would a professional line drawer respond if we were to move in such a direction.
Director Claypool.
Yeah, Director Claypool.
No,
you have anything to
add? That is, Commissioner Sadwani is completely correct. That was our thinking behind it completely.
Is that sufficient, Commissioner Kennedy? Thank you. Commissioner Turner.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the public comment, and I did not get an opportunity to look at them real clear until this morning as well. But Ms. Sillenberger, when she makes that announcement, I'm wondering if it's one of just agreement. She says regarding the simultaneous meetings discussed, and she gives the 1B1H, clarifying that it would be 2 to 3. And then she says, since you include that detail in 3. So I wonder if there was something there, and I'm trying to flip through and compare the 2 areas quick enough to see if the point is that there just was not an agreement from one place in the proposal to somewhere else.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Turner. Any other? Commissioner Fornashari.
So when I first read this, I misread it, and I'm not sure if Ms. Schellenberger misread it. I think what it means is we're going to hold meetings at 2 to 3 locations simultaneously, right? It doesn't mean 2 to 3 simultaneous meetings. Because I thought it was we're gonna hold these simultaneous meetings and we're only gonna have 2 or 3 of them. I think what it really means is we're gonna have some unknown number of simultaneous meetings, and they'll be at 2 or 3 locations at a time. Am I making any sense? No, sorry.
Well, Ms. Schellenberger did say that she was going to be listening into this conversation. So if you are listening, Ms. Schellenberger, clarity when we go to public comment is welcome on that. Any other comments? Commissioner Anderson?
That was the intent, as Commissioner Fornashari just said. The idea that, particularly remotely, that possibly we might have to have, like say we can just do a very small selection. We could have a line drawer and a videographer in a particular place. We might have a little bit, but not all of us. But have us, that might be set up in 3 different locations on a particular day. They wouldn't be happening all at the same time, but the locations would be occurring. And so a line drawer would have to staff 3 different locations. That's, I believe, what Commissioner Fornashari was saying. That was sort of the intent there. Again, it's as Commissioner Sadwani said, it's to show the flexibility. And could they staff that many if needed be?
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Kennedy?
I'll go back to a point that I think I made once before in a meeting. We, particularly with an RFP, we want it to be impossible to be misunderstood. And I don't think we're there yet. It may be possible to understand, but it would be much better if we could make it impossible to be misunderstood.
Commissioner Kennedy, are you referencing that point or the overall RFP?
No, that point.
Okay. Okay, I understand that Mrs. Schellenberger is in the queue, so at least as someone reading it, we'll hear what her perspective is momentarily. Is there anyone else that would like to share a comment or uplift the point before we go to public comment? Okay, Katie, could you read the instructions?
Yes, Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oops. There's that fervor I was looking for, Commissioner Fernandez. Let me go to Commissioner Fernandez before we go to Katie. Thank you, Commissioner Fornashari. Commissioner Fernandez, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'm going back to the simultaneous. The way it reads, it can be interpreted 2 ways. So I do agree with Commissioner Kennedy that instead of saying may decide to hold 2 to 3 simultaneous, why don't we just say may decide to hold simultaneous meetings, so that, because the 2 to 3 could be, is it going to be on 2 to 3 different days, or is it going to be 2 or 3 meetings on the same day? But if you just put simultaneous, take out the number, we don't hold ourselves to how many times or days we'll have simultaneous meetings, if that makes sense. But anyway, yeah, so it probably needs to be maybe rewritten just a little bit. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. Katie?
Yes, Chair. In order to maximize transparency and public participation in our process, the commissioners will be taking public comment by phone. To call in, dial the telephone number provided on the live stream feed. It is 877-853-5247. When prompted to enter the meeting ID number, it is provided on the live stream feed, 910-9237-7762 for this week's meeting. When prompted to enter a participant ID, simply press the pound key. Once you have dialed in, you will be placed in a queue from which a moderator will begin unmuting callers to submit their comment. You will also hear an automatic message that says press star 9. Please do this to raise your hand, indicating you wish to comment. When it is your turn to speak, the moderator will unmute you and you will hear an automatic message that says the host would like you to talk and press star 6 to speak. Please make sure to mute your computer or live stream audio to prevent any feedback or distortion during your call. Once you are waiting in the queue, be alert for when it is your turn to speak, and again, please turn down the live stream volume. The Commission is taking public comment on, how do we describe this?
Item number 4.
Item number 4. Perfect. And we do have a very full queue at this time. We will open it up. If you'll please state and spell your name for the court reporter, please.
Yes, this is Lori, Lori, last name Schellenberger, Schellenberger. I'm the redistricting consultant with Common Cause. And thank you for the robust discussion. And I should have said this earlier, for all the work that went into this RFP, which is in such a different form than it was previously, and looks really great. And I just want to respond on the 2 to 3 meetings question. And my understanding was the same as Commissioner Fornishari's, and was that this meant you would be having a few meetings at the same time. And Commissioner Turner was correct. I was just trying to ensure there would be consistency. I understand now from your discussion that it could be read in a few different ways. I do think it's important to put a number in there in terms of how many meetings you would be having at the same time, as opposed to how many times you might have simultaneous meetings, because I think that a line drawer would want to feel confident that they have the staff necessary to staff that many meetings at the same time. So I think the prior draft just said simultaneous meetings, and does that mean you might have meetings in 10 regions at the same time? And that would be a big lift for a line drawer. So knowing what the expectation is of how many you would conduct at the same time, I think would be important to make sure they have the technicians they need to staff that. And then I wanted to make one other point. I know I'm running to the end of my time, and it's a clarifying point that has to do with the date. And I appreciate that you'll make the change to reflect that the date could be extended. The deadline for the final adoption of maps could be extended to December 15th. And I do want to make a clarifying point regarding that comment, and it doesn't have to do with the substance of the proposal at this point, but to your decision to have August 15th as your working deadline and have the deadline be tied to the receipt of data. And I just want to flag for you that I do believe there are organizations that I've been facilitating who have concerns about tying the date to release of data, because, and certainly that date is in flux, and my colleague Rosalind Gold, who leads work on that nationally, can speak more specifically to that. But the second concern is just the conditions of this pandemic and everything else that has been thrown at organizations who are scrambling to respond over this past year in the midst of the pandemic and uplift underrepresented communities, I think have concerns about being able to facilitate and engage and educate the community on redistricting in a timeline as tight as August 15th. And I would just urge you next year when you reconvene to potentially revisit that discussion and even invite some of those groups who would be doing unity mapping and engaging communities in to gain a better understanding of why that deadline may be really difficult. And then there was one other question that I had in my email to you last night, which was a clarifying question about the description of the data and the reference to adjusted census data, and was hoping that the subcommittee could clarify what that was referencing. And those are my comments. I can stay on if there are any follow-up questions.
Commissioner Sadwani?
Sure. Just in terms of the adjusted data, I need to go back to your email and see exactly which portion you were referring to. But I believe we had used that terminology regarding whether or what we will do with the incarcerated population data that we receive. We have not had that discussion yet as a commission. I believe we will be having it soon. I have a sense of where I think we'll go as a commission, but we haven't made that decision yet. So that was what I believe we were referring to in adjusted data, and I need to go back and look at the specific subsection that you identified. But that was where some of the the use of the language of certified data versus adjusted data had come from.
Commissioner Anderson.
Okay, appreciate.
And also on that very same point, as I believe Ms. Johnson already said, that also gives the flexibility should any immigrants be taken out of the numbers we are given. That gives the flexibility of putting them back in, because as you know, we have to consider all people for our redistricting. So it was on both points, and that's why the adjusted is written in there.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Katie, could we go to our next caller?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Schellenberger. Katie, are you there?
Yes. If you'll please state and spell your name for the court reporter. Sorry, I was trying to get him to connect. You're live. If you'll please state and spell your name for the court reporter. Caller 2.
This is.
There you go.
This is Doug Johnson. Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am. If you could
Oh,
state and
okay.
spell your name for the court reporter.
Thank you. This is Douglas Johnson, DouglasJohnson. And good morning, commissioners. I'm from National Demographics. We've spoken before, and it's good to talk to you again. I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts on this proposal. One thing, as I mentioned before, I do encourage the commission to not make the proposal too onerous, because that will limit who bids. Two thoughts on that. First of all is kind of the theoretical side to trying to spell out how many meetings you're going to do simultaneously and things like that. You know, playing what if games in the proposal is very hard, and takes a lot of work on our side. And then secondly, a lot of provisions that may sound straightforward are very onerous. For example, you have the provision asking for a list and descriptions of every project we've done for the last 20 years. Well, our firm has done somewhere between 250 and 300 redistricting projects in the last 20 years. And if we spend only 2 minutes per project putting that summary together, that's between, 7 and 10 hours of work. So I do want to encourage you to think about that and make sure that you don't write an RFP that is so onerous that the highly qualified firms that you might be interested in just find it's not worth the effort to apply. So just a couple thoughts. Last, I would note there's no information on how to share a thought in your meetings on the agenda or in the website. There's actually a circular reference. The website says check the minutes, check the agenda, and the agenda says check the website, but neither one actually shares. So I thought I'd highlight that for you. The only way to find out is to actually watch the meeting. So wanted to share that with you, but thank you. And I hope you take these considerations into account. Lastly, there's no provisions for an online mapping tool. As I talked about before, would note that when the smallest school districts and small towns are offering their residents online mapping tools to participate in their process, it might be embarrassing if the commission for the state that hosts Silicon Valley does not offer that to its residents. So just wanted to remind you of that. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Next caller, Katie.
Yes, Chair. If you'll please state and spell your name for the court reporter.
Yes, my name is Kimberly Cole, KIMBERLEYCOLES.
The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, and good morning. I'd like to say a couple of things quickly in my time. One is appreciate Ms. Schellenberger for her email, none of which the public has access to because it's not posted yet. And so given the very extensive comments, that common cause is wonderfully making, and I agree with, I would love to be able to follow along. And so I believe this has come up, unfortunately, numerous times. And so encourage that finally to be figured out. I'd also like to talk about the timeline, and that's Rep. Schellenberger's comment again. The impact of the shortened timeline and the working deadline of August does seem to make sense in terms of the sort of technocracy of getting this done. but the impact on communities and maybe of not getting the public comment and the communities and all of that outreach done is 6 months. And so not to dismiss that with the desire to stick with the original deadline, that the December has come around for a reason, and the likely impact is not just on the line drawer and getting those maps out, but on the inability to get the data you need from California and the people. And then finally, and I know this is just a general comment, for the last 3 or 4 meetings, you guys have all discussed getting the 2021 calendar out, but it just keeps up appearing on the agenda as not happening. And so for all of our planning, and I think, again, several colleagues have mentioned this, it'd be really nice to get at least the January and February schedule out so we can all plan for our time, and you can plan as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Coles. Katie, could you invite in the next caller, please?
Yes, Chair. I'm trying. They have to let themselves in. There we go. If you'll state and spell your name for the court reporter.
Hi, my name's Chris Chaffee, CHRISCHAFFEE. I'm the COO, of Redistricting Partners. I just want to say at the start that we are not bidding on the line drawing RFP, so this is not a comment from a potential proposer. However, it is based on our experience doing this work professionally and working on many proposals right now, both in California and out of state. We have 3 general comments on the RFP, all on section 2, B1 and 2 on page 8, related to the work of your next demographer. First, you want people to disclose the redistricting work of both their companies and their employees working on their various projects. This is about the people involved in the work, not a brand name. To fix this, in sections 1 and 2, in the first sentence after a proposer, you'd need to insert the phrase "or project personnel." The second point is you really want to capture redistricting work done for both decision makers and outside organizations. In 2010, as you know, we did work for Equality California, promoting the use of data to identify LGBTQ communities as a community of interest. If we were bidding on this, that's work you would want it disclosed. To fix this, in section 2, in the first bullet, at the end of the sentence, insert the phrase "and if different, who authorized the project," i.e., non-governmental organizations. And the third point is you want to know if incumbency was a criterion for one of the plans that the proposer is submitting. Simply put, because it changes the process. If it didn't exist, the commission really wouldn't exist. So to fix this in section 1, in the third bullet at the end, you'd want to insert "and whether the maps considered incumbency." So to summarize, 1, experience is about the people involved. 2, non-governmental work should be disclosed. And 3, incumbency really impacts the relevancy of a map. So if it's used as a criterion. So thank you for your time and attention on this. I can stay on if you have any other questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chaffee. Katie, could you invite the next caller in, please?
So we do have one other person in the queue. However, they do not have their hand raised. So if you would like to make a comment, if you could press *9 to raise your hand. If not, we will move on. Chair, they have not chose to raise their hand.
Okay. Thank you very much for the comments. We will now move out of public comment and let me check the time. So we have 10 minutes before our break. Commissioner Yee, would that be an adequate budget amount of time for you to address the chair rotation?
It could be. It just depends on the amount of discussion gets generated.
Okay, well, why don't we begin it? And if we aren't able to complete it, we'll finish it after lunch. Excuse me, after the break. After the break. So Commissioner Yee, take it away. We're moving to number 7 on the agenda, which is the chair rotation schedule. And then we will come back to number 6 if we complete 7 after the break. Commissioner Yee.
Very good. So as you'll recall, Commissioner Toledo and I initially drafted the current chair rotation policy, which has a strict rotation of our political categories and then our alphabetical order. Some of the coming and going from the pool of commissioners who are choosing to stay in the rotation create a situation where we may be down to, it looks like we're down to 3 Democrat commissioners in the rotation. This creates a situation where we just have some of the commissioners rotating in a lot more than others, and it just seems to be something worth revisiting because it gets to a point where it's just not very equitable. So I came up with some various options we can consider, and you can see in the handout that I prepared, playing around with this. Option A is what's currently policy, and you'll see, for instance, that Commissioner Turner, who would be next after currently Commissioner Lamons, and then Commissioner Taylor, and then Commissioner Turner would be next. And then Commissioner Turner comes back again because there are only 3 Democrat commissioners in the rotation. So, and so it goes. The other issue is that it just happens that the policy we came up with, maybe we should have played it out, because as it happens, it seems to generate, just by happenstance, a lot of unmixed gender pairs of chair and vice chair. In fact, 8 of 9 so far, which is just, we seem to specialize in low probability outcomes in this commission. So, and some commissioners have voiced a desire to have more mixed pairs. So that's the current rotation. Option B that I propose emphasizes mixing genders as a priority. In none of these do we have commissioners serving with the same political affiliation commissioner. So that's always mixed to some degree. And then option B also tries to have commissioners serve sort of in the order so far, so that except that Commissioner Kennedy comes up quickly again because he's the only Democrat guy, actually. You'll notice that with option B, however, the political affiliations are not equitable. So since in the rotation you have 3 Democrats, 4 non-affiliated, 5 Republicans, in that rotation, that's the ratio you get. So you have a Republican commissioner chairing 5/3 as many times as you have a Democrat one. So those are no longer even in that proposal. Okay, working along option C, you have this is if we try to equal out workload. So this option looks at who served so far and tries to continue on, putting up the 3 of us who have not served so far early, and spreading everyone out as equally as possible, not considering gender. So that proposal, again, the political ratio is not even, and you end up with a lot of unmixed gender pairs. But it does even out the workload, if that's the most important thing to you. Okay, then option D, we go back to a strict political rotation. So all 3 categories are strictly even. And then I strictly alternate gender. So political affiliation are even, you have mixed pairs at all times. The cost is that some commissioners end up serving a lot more than others. So for instance, you'll notice that Commissioner Fornashari doesn't actually show up until, a long time from now, because there's five Republicans and you have to spread them out. So, and Commissioner Kennedy will have served 3 times before Commissioner Fornashari comes back, right? So that's the cost of that rotation. Note that in none of these rotations do I consider geography or race. So we're not prioritizing that in any of these rotations. I do have a preference. I don't know if I should float it or recommend it or just wait till I let this comment.
That's totally up to you, Commissioner Yee. Would you like to share it? Or?
If I had my druthers, I would go with option B. So in thinking about it, as I think about, how the 2010 commission was routinely lauded for having a rotating chair, nobody went on to say, and the rotation was perfectly equal. Isn't that great? Of course, more equality is better than less equality, but it's just the fact that it was rotated that seems to be, the chief credit. And in option B, we still do have always a mixed pair politically. You never have 2 commissioners of the same affiliation status. So I think that's relatively less important. We do still rotate. We still do have all 3 affiliation statuses rotating. They're not perfectly even, but they're sort of even, right? As even as can be. And then we do address fully the gender mixing concern, which I think actually would be a nice change. In option B, you do have 2 same gender pairs coming up, Fernandez and Ahmed. And then if it rotates around again, you'll see the last one there is Taylor, and then it rotates back to Toledo. So Toledo would be 2 guys, but otherwise we're all mixed pairs.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes, absolutely. I wanted to support Commissioner Yee's option B. Thank him for all of the work and detail that he put into this. And I am heavily in favor of option B.
Okay. Any other commissioners have? Commissioner Kennedy?
I certainly appreciate the work, and I hope Commissioner Yee has enjoyed the work. I'm still, to this day, not fully convinced that rotating is something that was certainly not contemplated by the original drafters, and I'm not fully convinced that it is compliant with the regulations as they're currently drafted. Would I object strenuously to any of these? No. But I do have my doubts as to whether rotating was really the intention of the regulation as drafted.
Thank you, Commissioner Kennedy. Any other comments? Okay, we're going to break for break. We're going to go to break for 15 minutes. Feel free to ponder the list before us. We will return back to this agenda item when we come back from break at 11:15 and go from there. Enjoy your break. Welcome back from break. We're at agenda item number 7. That's being led by Commissioner Yee. So where we left off just before the break is there was a recommendation of option B, and we were having a little bit of discussion there. So I'd like to pick up the discussion and continue. Our goal here is to choose one of the options so we can move forward. Commissioner Fernandez.
I just wanted to ask Commissioner Yee if this was, I hope my assumption's right, that we would start this rotation after Chair Lamons, And if so, my recommendation, I mean, I don't mind me, but I would recommend that maybe we move Taylor and move him up since he's the vice chair, and then that way he can be the chair and it can be Taylor and Toledo and then go that way. And I was looking at that also because both of them have not chaired so far. And I know that Commissioner Yee and Sadhwani also hasn't chaired so far. So I didn't want to take that away from them either. So I'm just trying to even it out.
Commissioner Yee.
Yes, good point. Actually, I assumed that Commissioner Taylor would chair next since he's current vice chair, and then the rotation goes on from there. If I may, a couple other quick points. One is that so a substitution rule, if which we need, because if somebody has to step off temporarily, then how do you know who's next? The rule I'm suggesting is that basically we keep the gender and political affiliation order, and if somebody has to step off temporarily, then that spot is filled with somebody of the same flavor. So if I had to step off, then another Republican guy would take my spot in the rotation. That works except for Democrat guys, because there's only one. So we have to keep Commissioner Kennedy healthy and strong so that there will not be a situation where he needs to be a substitute because there's no other Democrat guy in the rotation. Another thing, just apologies to Commissioner Anderson. I misspelled her name once here. Hopefully I didn't misspell anyone else's. If I did, my apologies. Also, we need to think about, okay, so I've been applying myself to this because Commissioner Toledo and I picked it up the first time around, but I think it needs to land in one of the subcommittees actually, rather than just as my kind of private project. If I mean, it's okay if actually it's okay, but maybe it should go to finance administration. I don't know. So. And I think we're keeping our already agreed upon understanding that chairs will conduct two full meetings, and then some of these single day meetings are just getting added on to whatever meeting followed or preceded.
Commissioner Toledo.
This looks like good work. I had a question about option 3. It says at the bottom that there's 3 Democrats, but I count 4 in that rotation. I count 4 Democrats listed there, but in the bottom it says there's only 3 Democrats, 3 Democrats.
In option C, that is?
No, in option B.
B.
And actually all of them, I think option B and C assumes only 3 Democrats, but there's 4 Democrats, I think, listed whose names are on that list.
Let's see. We have Sadhwani, Turner, and Kennedy, right? So I should have mentioned, I did touch base with several commissioners who would be most affected by some of these options. And so for instance, maybe we should hear from Commissioner Vasquez about her decisions.
Yes.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Thanks, Commissioner Yee. I've elected to pull myself out of the rotation. Just given my health and trying to navigate everything, I'd much rather commit my energy towards subcommittee work, especially outreach with Commissioner Turner and my zone, rather than also trying to add additional pieces to my plate. So that's just best for me. And I think it's also a way for me to better serve the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Vasquez.
So I think that leaves 3 Democrats. Am I missing somebody? I think.
No, I think I was miscounting.
Okay, all good. I'll send you these later. You can play with them too.
Are there any more comments to option B as the recommendation, or does any commissioners want to offer an alternative option? If Not, we'll move to a vote. Well, we'll go to public comment, of course, and then we'll come back and vote on option B if someone puts a motion forward. So Commissioner Fernandez, then Commissioner Sadwani.
I would move to accept option B, starting with Commissioner Taylor as the chair, and then moving in the rotation.
I would second.
Okay. If there's no additional comments, I'd like to go to public comment and come back for a vote. Katie, could you read the instructions, please?
Yes, Chair. In order to maximize transparency and public participation in our process, the commissioners will be taking public comment by phone. To call in, dial the telephone number provided on the live stream feed. It is 877-853-5247. When prompted to enter the meeting ID number, it is provided on the live stream feed, 910-9237-7762. When prompted to enter a participant ID, simply press the pound key. Once you have dialed in, you will be placed in a queue from which a moderator will begin unmuting callers to submit their comment. You will also hear an automatic message to press *9. Please do this to raise your hand indicating you wish to comment. When it is your turn to speak, the moderator will unmute you and you will hear an automatic message that says the host would like you to talk and to press *6 to speak. Please make sure to mute your computer or live stream audio to prevent any feedback or distortion during your call. Once you are waiting in the queue, be alert for when it is your turn to speak, and again, please turn down the live stream volume. The Commission is taking public comment at this time on item
number 7.
7. I had it. Thank you, though. I was proud of myself. We do have one person in the queue.
Thank you so much, Katie. You can invite the caller in, please.
Please state and spell your name for the Commission or court reporter.
Yes. Rosalind Gold, Rosalind, and the last name is Gold, Gold. And I just wanted to ask permission to make a very short comment that is not germane to the issue being discussed right this moment, but is germane to the previous discussion on the scope of work for the line drawer, if I may beg that indulgence.
What I'd like to do, caller Gold, Ms. Gold, is to invite you right after lunch. We'll have open general comment, and you can comment on anything on the agenda at that time.
I will be happy to call back then. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Ms. Gold was our only person in queue at this time.
Okay. So could we do our roll call for vote, please?
Commissioner Sadwani?
Yes.
Commissioner Sinai?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Chilito?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Vasquez?
Yes.
Commissioner Yee?
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Commissioner Akutagawa?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Commissioner Furnashari?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Abstain.
Commissioner Lamont?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Chair your meeting.
Thank you. I'd like to move to item number 6, Data Management, Commissioners Ahmed and Turner.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Turner and I would like to provide an update in regards to data management and where we are at. So last week we met with USDR and Karen McDonald to go over the different responsibilities of the line drawer and the specific needs from a data management standpoint that the line drawer had. USDR was able to engage in a discovery sprint in which they asked a whole bunch of different questions related to what our process is, what our vision is, what lessons learned Karen had to share with them. We are in the middle of that process, so we will have more to report on that at our next meeting. We also will be getting assistance from USDR in drafting the job descriptions for a data analyst or management type role from a technical standpoint. They have substantive experience in doing this and providing this service for other agencies. So we will be taking advantage of that opportunity as well. In terms of next steps for our data analyst or manager, we are really exploring the idea of an interagency agreement. This avenue would expedite the time in which we can bring someone on board for that role. This interagency agreement will also take advantage of the talent that we have in California at academic institutions and potentially provide us with an additional avenue to connect with students from across California, given that academic tie as well. So we are in the process of getting that information together with staff, and we will have more to report in January. Commissioner Turner, is there anything else that I missed?
No, you did a beautiful job. I think it was very clear, and we'll see now if there are any questions.
Any questions, Commissioner? Commissioner Sinai.
Are we not revealing who the interagency agreement may be with?
We don't know who the interagency agreement will be with at this point. We are still in the early phases of drafting that. From what I understand from staff, and Dan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that process will work relatively faster than a traditional RFP process. Dan?
And the only thing I would say to all the commissioners, including you, Commissioner Sinai, is if you know of someone with these types of talents and skills, please reach out to them once we put this together.
Any addition, Commissioner Sadwani?
So just for clarity, this will be released like an RFP? My understanding of an interagency agreement is that it's specifically with an entity or an individual at an entity. Are we still, it sounds like we're still seeking such an entity here in California or at a state-based entity. My understanding, for example, in 2010, Matt Barretto had an interagency agreement, but he was not in California at that point in time. He was at the University of Washington. So this could be at a state-based higher education institution outside of California as well. So this is going to be released and people are going to respond, or I guess just a little bit more clarity about how this is going to be managed in terms of identifying this individual.
Director Claypool.
So this is where we can go back to an RFI and basically put out a request for information from individuals who might be interested in entering into this type of agreement with us. So we can use an RFI as a vehicle to search, or we can identify it. And it is, Mr. Barretto is a good case in point. He was with the University of Washington last time, but we also can use individuals who have a cooperative agreement with California and California institutions. So we're not necessarily restricted to California talent, although we would always like to place this with Californians as much as possible. But but that's the process that we're looking at. We're going to produce an RFI document. We're going to float it through all of our vendors and all of the people that are on our list, and we're going to look for somebody who has the talent to pull this forward for the subcommittee.
Thank you for that, Director Claypool. Any other questions for the subcommittee? Commissioner Yee?
Thanks. I'm not sure this is the time to ask, but about scope of work, it wasn't entirely clear to me that we ever landed on the question of whether the data management contractor was responsible for the COI tool input in any way. We discussed that. In my mind, I'm not positive we landed, but I might be mistaken.
Yeah,
Mr. Turner?
Thank you. And thank you, Chair. In the discussions that we're having currently with USDR, when we receive their prototype back of the process, that will be included as well. And we also noted that in the line dryer RFI that we just went over, that there is also opportunity there for the commission to direct that individual to own a piece of that as well. And so we're gonna, once we get the prototype back, we'll have a clearer kind of picture and path for you that will to say who's going to own COI and how all of that will work. We do know that USDR in our conversation has talked with both Karen and Jamie to kind of shore up some of those details. So probably first part of January is when we'll have a clearer picture. We have all of the right players on the table now and in discussion with each other. And so now we're really looking forward to getting a definitive answer for us as a commission.
Very good, thanks.
Any additional questions? Okay. So we'll expect to hear more from the subcommittee at a subsequent meeting, and we look forward. Thank you so much for all the hard work that you all are doing. I love that word, discovery sprint. That sounded kind of sexy, actually. So as we move forward, I did want to, speaking of COI tool, I wanted to clarify a comment made by one of our callers earlier, Mr. Johnson, who suggested that there wasn't a tool or mechanism for the public to be able to submit maps. So we want to just do a shout out to the statewide database and the wonderful work that them and their partners are doing to develop the very thing that Mr. Johnson suggested wasn't happening. We do have that, and we'll have that for the citizens of California. Commissioner Anderson.
I'm sorry, to clarify on that, he was actually talking not about the COI tool, he was talking about a redistricting tool when he was talking about the maps. And that is something that the statewide database and that is still being worked on, but the COI tool was the first portion that they were working on. The COI tool is only for communities of interest. The redistricting tool, which is what Doug Johnson was talking about, he was talking about the actual, he wasn't talking about just communities of interest mapping. He was talking about, which is our, we talk about mapping, we get them all mixed up. He was talking about redistricting mapping. So basically the average person can go out there and say, I think you should draw them all like this. That's what he was talking about. And that is, Michael Wegeman was talking to us about that. But again, that is gone. The sequencing of the work on that is after the COI tool is out, then they were going to start working on that particular item.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson, for that clarification. I stand corrected. With that, we will move on to item number 10, which is discussion of future meeting dates and agenda items. So I'm not sure which commissioner has been keeping track. I know that there has been at least one or two commissioners who's been keeping track of the dates that we have scheduled so far. And I think we are scheduled into early February at this point. So if we could pick up from there and potentially go out to the end of February or the beginning of March in terms of picking dates. And then we'll continue to use our Google Docs tool and the developments of our progress to indicate our agenda items and grow those agendas accordingly. Commissioner Sinai? Did you have your hand up? I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry, I was trying to unmute. My notes say that we had gone all the way through February on our selection. I can put them,
okay.
if you'd like, I can share them verbally so everybody knows what I have and we can see if I was correct or not.
Sure.
January 6th is a tentative meeting if needed. January 11th through the 13th. January 21st is a tentative meeting if we need it. January 26th through the 28th. February 8th through the 9th. February 16th through the 17th. And February 24th through the 25th.
Okay, fantastic. So I think one of the callers, I don't think we have this posted anywhere yet. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So I think with our rotation and our dates, now that we solidified our new rotation, we can tie those to the meeting dates that we have out through the 25th. Do commissioners want to go out further than the 25th or wait until we convene after the first of the year and see where we are in terms of extending the chosen dates? Commissioner Sinai?
I guess one of the reasons I think we stopped, but also one of the reasons I'm not sure how to extend it past February is I'm not sure what our world looks like, our work looks like after February. And we're waiting for the outreach plan to kind of have a better feel of that.
Awesome. Commissioner Satwani?
Same, I kind of wonder to what extent we need to continue to have these kinds of business meetings if we're also going out into the community and beginning to collect either COI information or doing the public outreach and education meetings. I think we need further clarity on that before we commit to these meetings.
Okay, so with that, I think we can satisfy helping people helping the public start to slate their schedules through the end of February by simply posting our current projected meeting dates. And Commissioner Yee, do you want to add the new rotation schedule? You want to tie it to those dates, or would you like to keep that separate?
I'd be happy to put it all in one document. That would be useful. Also, I should mention that February 18th, we're projecting that we will have our new Legal Affairs Committee formed in January, and on the 18th, that will be an additional public meeting day for the Legal Affairs Committee to do its any final interviews and discussion to select our VRA and litigation counsel. So that's February 18th. But I'll go ahead and merge the two, the calendar and the rotation.
Okay. Commissioner Anderson?
I was actually writing that down now, and if we wanted to go over that, because there is a question about the 2-day meetings, where we talk about full meetings, and were our 2-day meetings full meetings or not? So that does affect February, obviously. So if we wanted to kind of talk about the 2-3-day item, then and anyone can put it together. But I think did we decide 2 days was the full meeting, or was it 3? I think Commissioner Akutagawa was involved in 2-day meetings and might have some input on that.
Does anyone have any comments on that?
Yeah, if I can just comment on what Commissioner Anderson said, I'll just, for clarification, I chaired 2 meetings because they were 2-day meetings, and I think the rule was 1 3-day.
If I recall, I'll just jump in here. I thought it was just a series of meetings. They might be a 2-day meeting or a 3-day meeting. I don't think it was one was considered a full meeting if it was 3 days versus 2 days. Commissioner Yee.
I believe the original rule was 1 meeting or 3 days. Then we amended it to be 2 meetings. I recommend that a 2-meeting day count as a meeting because it involves a whole separate agenda, and that's kind of the biggest work is assembling the agenda, right? So,
Commissioner Akutagawa.
And I just want to add further on top of that. I did find that having the 2 consecutive meetings did make agenda planning a little bit easier. And then working with Commissioner Forniciari on the agenda and then having him also do 2, I think enabled us to think further out and get kind of ahead of the agenda because of the posting requirements. And so I think it was at that time that we made the recommendation that each chair at least 2 meetings. And so that's where we ended up. And I think that's why you were chairing quite a few meetings now.
Okay. Any other comments or feedback on that? Commissioner Anderson.
So with that understanding, I could say, who has each of those meetings, if that would help people right now, and just for
I think Commissioner Yee is going to post it. We know that the next chair is Commissioner Taylor, and then it will be posted and people can check the list and see when they come in, if that's okay with everybody. Okay. Any objections to Commissioner Yee combining the schedule with the rotation and putting that forward to our staff to post? Commissioner Yee.
Just to mention that Chair Lamons generously picked up this meeting, a one-day meeting, adding it to his total. And so I'll just continue for optional meetings to assign those to either the preceding or the following set, just depending on how the order is going.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no additional comments on that, Commissioner Taylor.
Yes, and I guess maybe for clarification, as we had discussed and presented before, Commissioner Lamons will have the January 6th optional meeting, and I will have the January 21st optional meeting as the division of labor.
Yes. Okay, any other comments, questions, concerns, thoughts on this item? Okay, thank you, everyone. So what we need to do now is go into our closed session. Yes, 11:43, and we have until 12:45. Is that correct, or 12:30? Kristen, time check for me.
That's correct, Chair.
Which one? I'm sorry.
12:30
or 12:45. Okay, so why don't we move into our closed session. So the public will be going into closed session to address the personnel matters. I'm not sure exactly how long that'll take. We've budgeted 45 minutes to an hour. Then we will be returning. That'll put us right at lunch. So we would come back after lunch and take final public comment in the event that we don't have time to do it before we break for lunch. And at that time, you'll be able to comment on anything that we've addressed in the agenda today, as well as we'll report out where appropriate any decisions or actions taken in closed session. So with that, we will leave this meeting and go into our closed session link and then come back. We will come back just before lunch either way to let the public know where we are. That way we can stay on top of time and the public can be aware. Okay? All right, everyone. Thank you. Welcome back, commissioners. Welcome back, California. Thank you, California, for your patience. We're going to go right into public comment to close the day. And I'll turn to Katie to read the announcements. And this will be general public comment. And you are welcome to comment on any of our agenda items for today or anything else for that matter. So, Katie, could you read the instructions, please?
Yes, Chair. In order to maximize transparency and public participation in our process, the commissioners will be taking public comment by phone. To call in, dial the telephone number provided on the live stream feed. It is 877-853-5247. When prompted to enter the meeting ID number, it is provided on the live stream feed, 910-9237-7762. When prompted to enter a participant ID, simply press the pound key. Once you have dialed in, you will be placed in a queue from which a moderator will begin unmuting callers to submit their comment. You will also hear an automatic message to press star 9. Please do this to raise your hand, indicating you wish to comment. When it is your turn to speak, the moderator will unmute you and you will hear an automatic message that says the host would like you to talk. Press star 6 to speak. Please make sure to mute your computer or live stream audio to prevent any feedback or distortion during your call. Once you are waiting in the queue, be alert for when it is your turn to speak, and again, please turn down the live stream volume. The Commission is taking general public comment at this time. We do not have anybody in the queue.
Okay, so we'll give it a minute or 2 minutes to give people a chance to sign in with the delay. Can we, while we're waiting, can Marcy Supervisor introduce her to the commission and say a few beautiful words about her, please?
Just so you know, Commissioner, real quick, Marcy, I don't mean to interrupt. We do have someone in the queue, so please talk, and then we'll go there.
Okay, real quick.
All right, so let me go ahead and introduce Marcy. She comes to us with a wealth of knowledge from having participated in the census a few months ago. So let me introduce to you Marcy Kaplan. Marcy?
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome, Marcy. And we'll hear more from you in our next meeting, but we were remiss not to introduce you earlier. Katie, could you invite our first caller in, please?
Yes, Chair. If you'll please state and spell your name for the court reporter.
Yes, Renee Westa Lusk. First name is spelled R-E-N-E-E. Last name is W-E-S-T-A-L-U-S-K.
Please share your comment.
I just have some questions regarding mainly today's agenda items. It came up under the item 4, the RFP line drawing services on page 12 about that there would be more than one hearing being held at the same time in different parts of the state. I wanted to know, why do you have to hold more than one hearing at a time in different parts of the state? Is it because you might have to have more than one hearing in each region at the same time? And I wanted to know how many commissioners will be listening or attending the virtual hearings if you have more than one hearing going on at the same time. Because in the past, in the 2011 hearings, all the commissioners from all the hearings I either attended or saw online, all the commissioners were there, all 14 at each of the hearings. And then my second question has to do, if you could please explain the outreach zones and what the teams are supposed to do for outreach.
Commissioner Sadwani, would you like to address the first question?
Sure. Thanks so much, Ms. Vistalesk, for calling in and for your comment. We did actually discuss the simultaneous hearings a little bit earlier in the meeting, so I'm not going to go into too great of detail. But the idea here is not that we are definitely holding such meetings, but that it is a possibility based on many of our discussions. And so the idea here is that we would want to know how a potential line drawer would staff meetings if we chose to do them that way. So it is not saying that that's how meetings will be held, but simply that we want to make sure that we can identify a line drawer who could be flexible and nimble and be able to accommodate different kinds of meetings should we choose to go in that direction.
Thank you, Commissioner Sadwani. Commissioner Sinai, would you address the zones real quickly, please? Understanding that we're going to get into that more fully in a subsequent meeting.
Yes, the zones, we discussed them briefly at the last meeting, and in a future meeting, we will actually vote on them and we'll have a better understanding of our roles. The idea was to really look at the whole state of California and how could we break it down so that each of us could go in a little deeper in the different zones and start making some of the relationships we need for the outreach piece. When we receive the outreach proposal and we discuss the outreach plan from staff, that will give us more guidance on what our next steps are. But currently, The outreach teams are they're just a place to do, it's just outreach zones. They are not anything to do with the mapping or where we'll be having hearings or any of the above. It's just a way to organize ourselves.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Sinai, and thank you, Ms. Lux, for your questions and your call. Katie, are there additional callers in the queue?
No, Chair, that was it.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our meeting. And if there are no closing comments, concerns, I want to wish everyone happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and all of that good stuff. It's been an absolute pleasure being the chair. And if you have anything that you want to put forward for the January 6th meeting, please be sure to go and post that in the Google Doc today. And then I will let you know. It looks like we probably will have that meeting, but you'll get a confirmation letting you know, because we'll need to post by tomorrow. Is that correct, Director Claypool? Or is it by midnight tonight?
Let me work backwards on that, Chair.
Okay, so either be midnight tonight or by tomorrow. So Commissioner Sinai?
Because it was a maybe meeting, anything that we thought of like the zones, we put it in the 11th. Should we just also put it in the 6th just so, or will you just look at the 11th and move it up?
Yeah, I'm going to look at the 11th. So if it's pressing, like if we have some, like today, where there were some things we really needed to handle, and likewise, if there's some things we have to handle on the 6th, then we'll flesh out the agenda for one day meeting and pick and choose. So if you have something on there that you have posted for the 11th through 13th that you want to handle earlier, like say, please consider this, make a note there. But we do have the zones on there as a consideration. Like, for example, with the chair rotation today, that was one of those things that if we could get to it, we would. If not, we push it. So we're going to handle the zones the same way. Director Claypool?
So it would be, by my calculation, midnight tomorrow.
Okay,
Midnight
perfect.
Wednesday.
So if everyone could just go by there tonight at some point, and if you have something pressing, remember, this would be a meeting added. If not, it'll happen on our January 11th meeting. So in any event, we won't see each other till next year. So Happy New Year, and I look forward to seeing you all in 2021.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy
And
New
with
Year.
that, I guess I have to officially say the meeting is adjourned, but the meeting is adjourned.